Alright, hello and welcome back to Mr. Pisto Plays Magic the Gathering Arena Brawl. Today we have a deck tech of Linvala, Sheild of Sea Gate for party time again. I was thinking of doing Yorion, Sky Nomad, as my Azorius commander for the Azorius set, but I thought you see so much Yorion out there. I wanted something a little different. We have Linvala. She is a 3 mana, 3 converted mana, or 3 converted mana cost, 3/3 flyer. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you have a full party, which is one of the 4 cleric, rogue, warrior, wizard, you get to detain something. So you get to choose a non-land permanent an opponent controls until your next turn. It can't attack, block. Its activated abilities can't be activated, and it has a cool ability of sacrificing Linvala to choose hexproof or indestructible. Creatures you control gain that ability until the end of turn. So I have them in rows. The first row is actually a multi-creature, the Stonework Pack Beast. It's a 2 mana, 2/1, nothing really special, doesn't really do a whole lot other than give you any one of cleric, rogue, or warrior with Linvala, because Linvala is a wizard, so it gives you one of the 4 that you don't have for your party, so that's why it's here. The first pack of creatures that we have are our clerics. We have the Luminarch Aspirant, 2 mana, 1/1 human cleric. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. Seasoned Hollowblade, so we have clerics and warriors. You can play, it's a 2 mana, 3/1, discard a card, tapped Seasoned Hollowblade, it gains indestructible until the end of turn. Skyclave Cleric, it is a land if you need a land, but it's also a cleric if you need a cleric. And when it enters a battlefield, you gain 2 life, and it's a 1/3. Core Celebrant, 3 mana, 1/4, Core Cleric. Whenever Core Celebrant or another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain a life. Maria Captain, 4 mana, 1/1 Angel Warrior, Flying Vigilance. When it enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on it for each creature in your party, so it can be upwards of a 5/5 if you have everything. Magara, the Diplomat, 4 mana, 2/4 human cleric with lifelink. Whenever an opponent attacks with creatures, if 2 or more of those creatures are attacking you or a planeswalker you control, draw a card. Whenever an opponent casts their second spell each turn, draw a card. So hopefully we'll get them to slow down a bit. Squad Commander is a 4 mana, 3/3 core warrior. When he enters the battlefield or her enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white core warrior creature token for each creature in your party. And then at the beginning of combat on your turn, you have a full party, so this deck actually really rewards you for your full party. Creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain indestructible until the end of turn. Then we have the Shepherd of Heroes. It is a 3/4 flyer for 5 mana. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life for each creature in your party. Haven Gagglemaster is a 4/3 for 5 mana. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life for each creature with flying you control. I put a Maria's Call here because it makes Angel Warrior creature tokens. You get 2 of them for 7 mana, or you can put it in to play as a land untapped for 3 life. Non-angel creature tokens or creatures you control gain indestructible until your next turn. We have the Sea Gate Colossus. It's just a big beater. This costs 1 less to cast for each creature in your party, so it can be a 3 mana 7/5. The next pack we have our rogues and our wizards. We have the Nimble Trap Finder. It can't be blocked if you had another cleric, rogue, warrior, or wizard enter the battlefield under your control this turn. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you have a full party, creatures you control get, whenever this creature does combat damage to a player, draw a card until the end of turn. Thieving Skydiver is another rogue, 2 mana, 2/1. Kicker of X, it has flying. X can't be 0. When Thieving Skydiver enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, gain control of target artifact with converted mana cost X or less. That artifact is an equipment. Attach it to Thieving Skydiver. So you get to steal the different artifacts that people play in MTG Brawl Arena right now. Cloudkin Seer, simple 3 mana 2/1 that's flying, and it draws you a card when it enters the battlefield. Glasspool Mimic, it's cool because it turns one of your other creatures into a rogue plus its other creature type. So it can also be played as a land. It's a 3 mana. When you have Glasspool Mimic enter the battlefield as a copy of a creature you control, but it's a shapeshifter rogue in addition to its other types. Then we have the Seafloor Stalker. So this guy or girl just deals the damage. He gains +1/+0 until end of turn and can't be blocked this turn. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each creature in your party. Its initial cost is 5, but then after that it goes down. 3 mana 2/3. Then we have Barian Tolarian Archmage. It's a 3 mana 2/2. When Barian Tolarian Archmage enters the battlefield, return up to one other target creature or planeswalker to its owner's hand. Beginning of your end step, if a permanent was put into your hand from the battlefield this turn, draw a card. You can draw something on your own if you need to, or usually you're just bouncing, and it works really well with the Yorion in the deck and the Thassa. Brazen Borrow will return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand to an opponent controls, not your own. That is petty theft. Otherwise, it's a 3 mana 3/1 flash flyer that cannot block creatures flying. And we have the Umara Wizard. It's a land if you need a land, or it's a 5 mana 4/3 Merfolk Wizard. Whenever you cast an instant sorcery or wizard spell, Umara Wizard gains flying until the end of turn. Then we have the Shipwreck Dowser, the last of our party creatures. It is a 5 mana 3/3 with prowess. So whenever you cast a non-creature spell, it gets +1/+1 until the end of turn. When it enters the battlefield, return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. And that plays really well with Sublime Epiphany. It's kind of an infinite loop, because you get to make a copy of Shipwreck Dowser and then get this back, and then again and again. If you enjoy the content that I make, I would love for you to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification button so you can see when the actual gameplay session of this deck comes out. Right, on to the other spells. These are the ramp and removal. I don't have many ramp spells. We have the Arcane Signet, which is 2 mana for an artifact that taps for your one of any color in your commander's color identity. So this taps for a blue or a white. Another ramp spell is Midnight Clock. It's 3 mana for a artifact that taps for a blue. You can pay 3 mana to put an hour counter on Midnight Clock. Also, at the beginning of each combat or each upkeep, put an hour counter on Midnight Clock. When the 12th hour counter is put on Midnight Clock, shuffle your hand and graveyard into your library, then draw 7 cards and exile the clock. So it ramps you, and then late game, when you don't need the mana anymore, you'll draw a bunch of cards. And the other ramp spell I have is Solemn Simulacrum. Pretty much, like I've said before, it goes in every single Brawl deck you can imagine. It's a 4 mana 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic land, put it on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle your library, and when it dies, you draw a card. Now on to the other removal of the deck. We have Banishing Light, the 3 mana enchantment. Whenever Banishing Light enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until Banishing Light leaves the battlefield. Playing 2 Wraths in the deck, the Realm Cloak Giant and also Shattered the Sky. With Linvala, you can sacrifice her to give all your creatures indestructible and then wipe the board. So for 4 mana, each player who controls a creature with power 4 or greater draws a card and destroy other creatures. So your creatures stay alive, their creatures will die if you have Linvala. Journey to Oblivion. This costs 1 less to cast for each creature in your party. So it could in theory cost 1 white. When Journey to Oblivion enters the battlefield, exile a target non-land permanent and opponent controls until Journey to Oblivion leaves the battlefield. Elspeth Conquers Death is a multifaceted card for 5 mana. You exile a permanent with converted mana cost 3 or greater. 2. Non-creature spells your opponent's cast cost 2 more to cast until your next turn. And then step 3, return target creature or planeswalker card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Put a 1/1 counter or a loyalty counter on it. Then we have Realm Cloak Giant. It's a 7 mana, 7/7 with vigilance, or you can pay Cast Off for 2 white and 3 colorless to destroy all non-giant creatures as a sorcery. So it plays well with Linvala's ability to make your things indestructible. Heliod's Intervention. 2 white and an X. Choose one, destroy X target artifacts and or enchantments, or target player gains twice X life. This card honestly has been really surprising me. I think it's a great card for the format. Then we have Yorion, Sky Nomad. What can I say? You all probably know Yorion if you've played the ladder a lot, or if you've even played standard a lot, or historic. So when Yorion enters the battlefield, exile any number of other non-land permanents you own and control. Return those cards to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. So it's a 5 mana 4/5. Plays really well with. I tried to pick creatures that it plays really well with. Thassa Deep Dwelling does a similar thing to Yorion, except it only does one creature every turn. They 4 mana 6/5 with indestructible, and as long as your devotion to blue is less than 5, it isn't a creature. The beginning of your end step, exile up to 1 other target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under your control. Or you can pay a blue and 3 colorless to tap another target creature. So both Yorion and Thassa play well with this next creature. Charming Prince is a 2 mana 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, you choose to scry 2, gain 3 life, or exile another target creature you own, return it to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of the next end step. So it kind of loops Yorion. Neat. And it also scries in the early game. If you're falling really behind on life, you can gain a bunch of life. So Thassa and Yorion are kind of the side strategy, and Linvala and the party are the main strategy of the deck. We have some non-creature spells with the Jury Shelter. 2 mana, target creature you control gains protection of the color of your choice until the end of turn. It can also be a land. Anticipate, look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand, rest on the bottom of your library in any order. 2 mana instant. Omen of the Sea is a 2 mana enchantment with flash, so it's basically an instant. When Omen of the Sea enters the battlefield, scry 2, then draw a card. Sacrifice Omen of the Sea for 3 mana to scry 2. Maul of the Skyclaves. I thought this was cool because you could reset it with Yorion. And it's also just makes your creatures beefy. It's a 3 mana equipment. When it enters the battlefield, attach it to target creature you control. Equipped creature gets +2/+2, has flying and first strike, and then it costs 4 mana to equip. Then we have Basari Ket, a 3 mana 3 loyalty planeswalker. +1 is put a 1/1 counter on up to 1 target creature. It gains indestructible to the end of turn. -2, whenever 1 or more non-token creature attacks this turn, create that many 1/1 white soldier creature tokens that are tapped and attacking. -6, you get an emblem with at the beginning of combat on your turn. Create a 1/1 white soldier creature token, then put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. If you can land it and protect it, good game. Next we have the Inscription of Insight. It's 4 mana, you get to choose one of the 3 things, or you can kick it for another 2 and blue and 2 colorless for all 3. And those 3 things are return 2 target creatures to their owner's hands, scry 2, then draw 2 cards. The target player creates an XX blue illusion creature token, where X is the number of cards in their hand. For 8 mana, you get a really cool effect. For 4 mana, you can dig yourself out of a hole, you can make a big creature, or you can get 2 things out of the way to go for lethal. Then we have Sublime Epiphany. I mentioned this card earlier with Shipwreck Dowser. For 6 mana, you can choose 1 or more of the 5 things. Counter target spell, counter target activated or triggered ability. Usually you're only going to pick one of those 2 because not many times do people cast a spell before an ability resolves. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Create a token that's a copy of target creature you control. That, like I said, with the Shipwreck Dowser, you go back and forth between those two. The target player draws a card. Then we have Spoils of Adventure. The 6 mana instant that can cost 1 less to cast for each creature in your party. So it could cost 2 mana blue and a colorless. You gain 3 life, draw 3 cards at instant speed. Then we have Sea Gate Restoration. More often than not, this is a land, but it's a pretty free land. So why not put a 7 mana draw cards equal to the number of cards in your hand plus 1? You have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game. So in many ways, it's kind of just a free spell. And then we into some lands. We have the Fabled Passage. Sack it to search for a basic land, put it on the battlefield tapped. Shuffle your library. If you control 4 or more lands, untap it. The Command Tower has 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. Tranquil Cove, tap for a blue or a white, comes into play tapped and gain a life. Temple of Enlightenment enters the battlefield tapped. When it enters, scry 1, and you can tap for a blue or white. We have 5 basic islands. Castle Vantress, you can pay 2 blue and 2 colorless to scry 2. Taps for a blue, enters the battlefield tapped unless you control an island. And we have 6 plains. And the last card in the deck is Castle Ardenvale. You can pay 2 white and 2 colorless and tap it. Create a 1/1 human feature token, which is white, and it enters the battlefield tapped unless you control plains. And that, ladies and gentlemen, boils and girls, is my Linvala Sheild of Sea Gate Azorius MTG Arena Brawl deck. Heck. If you want to see the gameplay, check the description below or the card above. And yeah, thank you for watching. Have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, or night, wherever you're in the world. Make sure you check out the gameplay session coming soon. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.